Welcome everyone to another episode of the Incidentally Reliable podcast. Today we have Krishnendu Majumdar, who is the CPTO at Yubi.
Thank you.
He's had a pretty storied career. The last 20 years he's worked with at Yahoo, then at Flipkart. In Mobi for about 7 years, and then Flipkart, and now he heads product and engineering here at Yubi. Thanks, Krish, for
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Krish, I was looking at Yubi's journey, and the first question that anyone can think of when they look at Yubi as a company, right, is why did Yubi even choose this market to be in the debt market? What was so special about this market? It's a very unsexy market.
Yeah, that's true. So part of it has to do with the background of our founders. In fact, Gaurav Kumar, who is our founder, this is fourth venture.
Okay. And
before that, he was with Northern Arc, Vivriti, and they were playing in the debt market. So okay. We say that, you know what, Yubi is a 3-year-old company, but the ideas have been doing for the last 18 years.
18 years.
Right. So
okay.
they were doing all of these things for the last 18 years, right?
Yeah.
So that is one part, and you are right, like saying that why debt market, why does it look...
it's an unsexy market.
It is a very unsexy market, but unsexy does not necessarily mean it is not essential.
In fact, there's this inverse thesis, right? The less sexy an industry is, the more profitable it is, right? And the bigger the TAM. And it's much more easier for a company to actually survive and even thrive in that market.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, that is true. So one of the aspects is that for example, it is very important for companies when they start up is that what is the problem that you are trying to solve, and what is the mission, right?
Okay.
Because as a startup founder, they have to explain that to a lot of people, right?
Yep.
And it is that what is the mission, what is the vision, and all that,
yep.
right? And then if you have to look at it, see, debt is that is one of the oldest, what I should say, instruments,
yep.
isn't it?
Yep.
Right? We have heard about that Merchants of Venice and all those things everywhere. And then there is specifically, for example, a very negative connotation with debt as well.
Yeah. Everyone's out for their own pound of flesh, like Shylock, right?
Right. It is that, right? That's the stories we have been fed. But there is a very interesting story which is not very relevant, not very public to people. Okay.
Which is.
And if you want to know details about it, you should read a book, or I will suggest read a book by Dr. Krishnamurthy, which is called Money, a Zero-Sum Game.
Okay.
And he does a very, very interesting analysis of last 50 to 70 years of all the countries which have lifted very large section of their population above poverty, and not only that, they have become developed nations, right? Countries like South Korea, right? Countries like Germany and others during their entire period of what they have been doing. And for the entire period during their growth, their debt to GDP ratio was close to 160% to 240%.
Lovely, okay.
Debt to GDP ratio.
Yep.
Understand that what it means, right? A GDP is a current structure of the economy for this year,
yep.
right? When the debt is 200% of GDP, means that the country is investing during that year, and that will show up in the GDP growth in the subsequent years, right? That's what debt to GDP ratio means.
Right.
And for even today, if you see China, US, they are well above 100% or 120% of debt to GDP ratio. And after 75 years of India's independence, we are still at 60%.
Why is that though? Why has India had a low debt to GDP ratio?
See, and that is what, for example, at least in this book, Dr. Krishnamurthy makes an argument that maybe the financial institutions in India could have had the opportunity to do more, right? But no opportunity lost there. I think there is a balance to be struck, right? For example, I think the Indian financial institutions are one of the most resilient in the world, if you see, right? You hear all type of,
yep.
What I should say, different type of scams, this, that, and all those things in different countries. But India has been very resilient,
yep.
right? But part of that resiliency is also obviously how the economy has operated, right? And that is the history. right? And when we are saying that India is going to grow massively and become the third largest economy, what will fuel that growth? We started with a philosophy that everybody should get credit at the point that they deserve.
Yep.
And that is what we are trying to transform in India.
Got it.
Right? So it was a very bold vision, right? And saying that, how do we do that? And I will just tell you one thing, like, we just last month, we completed an important milestone of processing 10 million loans.
In a single month?
No, in the year. We are in this financial year.
Okay.
We are running processing close to 1 million loans a month now.
Wow.
And that million loans means everything, right? It is from working capital to, say, personal loan, to education loan, to housing loan, to commercial vehicle loan, doesn't matter.
Got it.
Right? And now, in this 3-year journey, at least full credit to the team here, we are almost like 90% of PSU banks, private banks are already on our platform.
90%?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Right? And each one of them we are working with, because they are also seeing the value, right, of what this platform brings. Right? So while you say that, it is not a sexy problem from that perspective, but it is a damn good problem to solve.
I agree.
Right? For example, and I will tell you, I will not name the bank. For example, just to tell you that what we are enabling. So there is always a thing called a credit report, right? Whenever somebody is giving somebody a loan and all that thing, this particular BU in a particular bank were handling close to 50 to 60 credit reports they were able to process in a month.
Okay.
And through our platform, we have enabled them to process close to more than 2,000 or 3,000 credit reports every day.
Wow. That's huge.
That is the transformation, right? Like, the transformation that India needs is not little cute things here and there, right? It's not about just a feature here or some easy left button, right button here. It needs to be a very, very holistic solution, right? And that is the transformation which people are looking at, right?
Got it. I mean, Krish, why did you specifically, I mean, maybe talk a little bit about your background, right? I mean, you've worked at a lot of companies and you've seen like some crazy scale at a lot of the companies in the past, right? Why did you specifically gravitate to this problem? Is this space, or when did the space really appeal to you, and what really gravitated you to the specific problem?
I get asked that question quite often, to be very honest. So people either make a judgment that I have no idea what I'm doing in my life. So just to give a background, in these 26 years that I've spent, in, say, very early, I started with some banking experience for 3 years. Then I was into online trading platforms. Then I was spent in supply chain for almost like 7 years. Then I spent 10 years in advertising, and then almost 4 years in e-commerce, and now in fintech. Right?
Is there a sector you have not touched?
so that's where I come from, and then I think that is one of the advantages of being an engineer, right? Like, you can go into different domains, right? And because you gravitate towards the problems that are worth solving, and sometimes it is a matter of scale. For example, at one of the advertising companies I was working for, we were handling close to 60 billion events every day, right? And you have an infrastructure to deal with that, right? Or for example, when in e-commerce, it is about like what is your conversion rate? How many products you deal with, right? How do you create great user satisfaction and positive NPS and in near real time, and handling huge.
So these are all very complex problems.
Very complex.
That's what I'm seeing a sort of like a trend, right? You like working in companies where the problem itself is inherently complex.
Yeah.
And then brings me to my second question, which is that how do you explain the technical complexity of the problem that Yubi is solving?
So let me put it this way, right? Like, okay, let me first understand that what we are not solving. Right? Not solving is very simply putting that about digitizing an existing process. Right? Digitizing an existing process is the problem we are not solving. Right? To draw a parallel is that when cars were getting invented, they didn't say that how do I build cars to feed them hay in a more efficient manner from the front, right? like it was not that, right? They were not trying to digitize horses, right?
Yep.
So similarly, it is not a digitization of the existing process, but being very early at this game, as I said that Krishnendu or Yubi is just a 3-year-old company. In a lot of cases, we are actually co-creating the entire solution working with our clients.
Okay.
Right? And they are also reimagining it. Right? So just to let you know, for example, one complexity, okay, which is usually not a complexity in some of the other companies I have worked with. Today we work with a wide spectrum of banks and NBFCs who are at different stages in their cloud journey.
Okay.
Right? Now either we could have said, okay, what, we are on one cloud and everybody please come here because that's where the shop is open. Right? Versus we decided very early that we will be cloud neutral.
Okay.
Now imagine our entire code base is completely cloud neutral. We can deploy it on-prem or any other cloud provider, doesn't really matter. It can work in multi-tenant mode, single-tenant mode, all of that. Now, in such a situation, when you are coding like that, how do you make sure that, okay, it remains cloud neutral going forward?
Okay.
But does not lose out on the core benefits each cloud provider provides, or even a on-prem situation.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, you are ending up with a very, very heterogeneous production setup.
Exactly.
Right? Something is multi-tenant on one cloud, something is another multi-tenant on another cloud, or for example, single tenant in some other cloud, and you have private clouds, and you have on-prem.
Yep.
How do you solve the monitoring and uptime and throughput of this entire setup? Right? What does it mean from a development perspective about how you code in the first place to reduce MTTD and MTTR, mean time to resolve and mean time to detect? Right? So those are the engineering excellence that we have to come into. I'm not even going into the business logic complexities of things, right? Like for example, like the type of complexities that we deal with. Because look at it this way, right? There are some financial institutions which have been around since independence.
Yep.
Versus there are some NBFCs which have been around last 2 years.
Yep.
Look at the process mismatch they will be having.
Okay.
Look at the data mismatch they will be having. And when we are creating that marketplace for that, we are saying that not both of these sides, we are creating a way for both of you to talk to each other. Doesn't matter what.
Yep.
Right? So when you are absorbing all that complexity across process, across data, across compliance, right? And in this heterogeneous environment, right? At least what I have seen is that, for example, I have not seen this level of engineering complexity before in my career.
Anywhere else?
Anywhere else.
Really?
Whether it was when we were building for global supply chain for Walmart, when we were building that, or Sam's Club specifically and others, and Shell and Chevron in my supply chain journey, or any other place, we haven't seen this type of complexity. And that calls for very, very mature SDLC processes, coding standards. How do you problem solve it? What is the architecture? And we being a startup, any startup lives in extreme constraints, isn't it? Now either you can whine about it day in and day out, or you use that complexity, that constraint as a beautiful tool, which forces you to think differently, innovate differently every day for every problem, right? So just to give people a sense of what we have built, when we said that 90% of them are on our platform, imagine like when we said that we are processing close to 1 million loans a day, and we are 4 companies, by the way. This is the loan marketplace, then there is a collection marketplace, and then there is a fixed income marketplace, and then we had acquired a company called Compository, which is a Compository and Finford, which are into the core data and underwriting tools, right? Our customer support team is just 7 people.
Wow, okay.
7. Our operations team is 12 people.
How did you scale that?
That's the point.
Okay, that's amazing.
Right.
How did you scale the the customer support team so easily? I mean,
7 people. And I will tell you what, right? The point is, right, the customer support team, do you know what their OKR is?
number of tickets, maybe CSAT, maybe... No? None of them? Not the usual
First
OKR?
is that SLA has to be 99.9%.
Okay.
And the second is, the customer support team's head's goal is how can you operate with 0 customer support team?
Exactly.
Right? So, and those are the engineering excellence things that we are talking about, right? For example, now customer support is not at the end of it where they are just at the receiving end of things. Today they influence our product roadmap.
Yep.
Right? And for example, every aspect of what we do is that you can what month over month how we are getting better. How am I reducing tickets in the first place? Right? Or how many tickets we are able to handle at the customer support level itself. So I'm just giving you tidbits about how to build a company very differently. Like if you're tech first,
Yeah.
right? If you have a huge customer support team, you have lost it.
Yeah.
Right? Because then what will happen is that the type of problems you will solve is very different and you miss the point.
Makes
Right?
sense.
So those are some of the philosophies that we put together in scaling the organization.
There's, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of engineering excellence concepts being discussed, right? And I mean, I was wondering, how can other institutions in India, tech companies in general, adopt engineering excellence? And how big of a role do you think engineering excellence would play in the overall India growth story?
I think it is going to be huge, and this is where, well, like for example, I'm talking to the audience here, like if primarily they are engineers and all that, right? I think like this is a unique opportunity built in India for the world, right? And which means that India has been known, like for example, India has been known saying that, oh, you have huge manpower, you deploy manpower wherever that is true in some cases, absolutely, and creates a lot of what I should say, easy problem solved, like which is the adage that you are throwing people at the problem, right? But if organizations have very, very high ambition of building in India and going to the world, right? You have to think of that how scale is thought from day one, right? And I'm not saying scale as okay, it is not just about QPS. It's about that the whole service design. Who is touching the software? Right? What are the interaction points? How can you reduce, like sort of the back and forth? How can you get it right the first time? Right? And build with speed. So often people say, oh, if I build with speed, they give you either or choice, right? The speed, you want speed or you want quality?
Reliability.
Right. Quality and reliability, or do you want speed?
Yeah.
In our organization, we took a very early call. It's not an or, it's an and function.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you do that though? How do you maintain speed along with reliability?
So two things, two aspects of it, right? One is that the decision-making process, right? Often I have seen, and I've worked across many different organizations, there is the analysis paralysis. What is the best solution? Doesn't matter if you are late, right? There you will go wrong. So one aspect is that you are defining very clearly that what is the decision-making TAT. Here we have very clearly defined what is the decision-making TAT at every level. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The question is the cost of experimentation has gone down. If you are not choosing something catastrophic, which obviously we'll discuss, but iterate fast. No analysis paralysis. That is the first level of velocity, right? Isn't it? Like I can say that okay, we are deploying the engineers who can code the fastest, but what to code, that decision comes once in 3 months doesn't help anybody, right? So first is the decision making. And that I think is responsibility of every engineering manager, every product guy, every exec, every engineer. Right? Don't just sit on decisions. Right? Decide fast, because the cost of inaction, opportunity loss of inaction is much, much higher at the trajectory where India is today in our growth story.
Okay.
That is point number one, right? Point number two comes in that, you know what, and this is you may say, the boon or bane of building for India and building in India and going for the world. By default, you are looking at a problem to be solved at a billion scale.
Yep.
Right? Look, payments were around in every country, lot of ways, right? Everywhere people are saying that payment is a problem in India. Look where we are today. We are perhaps a decade or 2 decades ahead of most countries in payment. Why? Because from day one, it was thought of as part of a billion scale. And when you build something like that, you fundamentally change the unit economics. And when you fundamentally change the unit economics, right? Other countries will not have any option but to adopt that. As simple as that. Right? You don't have to sell the product. Right? So that, when we are looking at from an excellence perspective, one is that speed is that obviously reduce the decision-making process. Understand that what are irreversible decisions versus non-reversible decisions, right? And on the reversible decisions, move fast because the cost of inaction is much higher.
Makes sense.
Second is when somebody is building software, right? Think of not just the QPS, but the operability, observability, monitoring, everything of your product. Because the thing that you are working on today will move on to do something else. Don't make it a problem for the organization once you move on. Right? So it should be very observable. It should scale. Right? It should be very easy to detect what has gone wrong where, and very easy to resolve. That is the quality part of it. And we have been taught in our colleges long back. Follow defensive programming, use proper error codes, use proper exception handling, right? These are like, I think, universal truths. It is just that people have forgotten about those, but those are the building blocks of a good software, right? And then nowadays, I think like the tools galore with respect to like helping everybody in achieving that level of what I should say, code quality and everything. Additionally, since we are in the fintech, imagine our problem is also that about how our platform can be fully compliance, like certified all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's also a challenge, right? To be able to be compliant while at the same, to look at the product from a compliance perspective and also keep building more, right?
Correct. And
it's because compliance can really put the brakes on the product sometimes, right?
Correct.
It's happened with a lot of companies.
Correct. And that's why from day one, the way we built is like, to draw an analogy for you is that if your code is non-compliant, the build will fail.
Okay.
Like we have tried to codify to that level.
Okay.
Right? And not only that, like the compliance is not a static thing. It's a dynamic thing. So how do you sort of allow for that whenever some compliance is changing, how quickly you can get your software ready on that, right? How much thing you put in code versus how much put you config.
Exactly.
Right? And our approach to most of the cases is that the developers should not be in the path of most of the changes that are asked for.
Okay.
Everything we can hand it over to our solutions team and they should be able to do through configs.
Okay.
So a large part of our platform has moved to low-code, no-code frameworks.
I see.
So it's not about functionality development, it's about platform development, framework development.
Makes sense.
Right? So just to give you a sense of it, when we integrate with the bank, with the most complex implementation that we have done, the bank got integrated with our platform with 52 APIs.
Okay.
Another bank, and another bank comes in, they have to have 20 APIs, 30 APIs. For most of our API integration with banks actually runs on a almost no-code framework. Nobody codes. And that's why the banks are sometimes surprised when we say, okay, no worries, we will integrate with you. Give us 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah. Whether it is 52 APIs, 40 APIs, doesn't matter.
Impressive. So, I mean, you've always taken the platform approach while building Yubi from day one.
From day one. And we chose, that's why, like, for example, and that is the scale.
Okay.
Right? That is the scale, is that we are an extremely neutral marketplace. We don't take sides. We are trying to create that opportunity for borrowers and lenders to come together and figure out what is best for their business.
Yep.
Right? That infrastructure is very, very critical. And when you are building something at an infrastructure level, the resilience, quality and all that. And trust me, like for example, a lot of things that is getting built in India today for the growth, right? Whether it is about transportation sector, whether it is about the identity sector, whether it is about payment, right? We have the opportunity to leap forward, not build apps, but build frameworks and platforms on which many other can innovate.
Okay.
That is the opportunity in front of all the software developers in India today.
Okay.
Right? It's not about one Qt app here. Build something which enables the ecosystem to build on top, on top, on top, on top. And really have the impact at a billion level.
I'm curious, what is like the biggest scale problem that you've solved, that you faced and solved?
In my career, I mean.
Yeah, let's do career. Yeah.
So there are many stories, but something which comes to my mind in my recent past at Flipkart, right? Like thousands and thousands of sellers are uploading products, right? And variations of products and all those things, right? One is that you need to catalog and index them well. You have to create a good knowledge graph of these products, how those products are related to each other and all that. You want to make sure that the compliance needs are met, means like no pornographic material or politically sensitive or religiously sensitive images or text mixed into it, right? And you want to also make sure that you are constantly solving for data gaps, right? Because look at any seller in India. You say that I want you to put all the data with respect to what people are searching for. They will not, right? Versus there will be also people who will be gaming your system, right? On a red shirt, they will put all colors so that they show up in everything, right? So, and all of this for the best customer experience when you're searching for something so that the right product shows up, right? And also, look at from the seller's point of view, how can you make it very, very simple for them to catalog? Because India is not a English-first population. How do you make sure that they are able to catalog the time from the time they acquire a product to the time they are able to get the first order on any of the e-commerce platform has to be the shortest, right? This is the complexity of the platform. Now you imagine adding 1 billion products a year. One approach is that, you know what, every product which goes through, what will you linearly think of? Like every product which goes up, goes through a QC process, there are people looking at it, they're rejecting things, they're saying that, but soon you will run out of it. If you're running like that, then the time from which some seller uploads a product to the time it sells, it will be weeks. Right? So what me and my team did there, actually, I will tell you the output and then I will save the backstory of how we did it. We reduced it into hours.
Interesting.
Right? By actually not increasing the team that does QC, but actually reducing the team that QC.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because, and that's why, for example, for engineers, I think that when you are dealing at a billion level scale problem, you have to think differently in a lot of ways. How we did it is we deployed close to 500 AI models in production.
Okay.
And when we started the problem, the flagship was we have shipped 2 models to production.
Okay.
In 2 quarters. From there, shipping like 500 models in AI models in production. AI models, what are the type of AI models? Which is checking that if you have put together the description as a full sleeve shirt, is the image a full sleeve shirt? Is the image taking 80-90% of if the product taking 80-90% of the image? Is this really the front view of a product or is this a back view of a product? Is this product very similar looking to these 5 other products, which means the knowledge graph has to be created like that? Everything. Is there a religiously sensitive thing? Is this pornography? Or is this like religious sensitive or politically sensitive? Is it not? What products are allowed, what products are not allowed? If somebody is trying to list a bomb there, you should stop it, right? You don't wait for a human to look at it, right? All of that through AI models.
Wow. This was like a couple of years back.
Yeah.
This was like 5-6 years back.
No, this was like 3 years back.
In Flipkart, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 3 years back.
Right. And the way we did it is that find the right solution for the right problem.
Got it.
We chose like AutoML as the platform, and a large part of the operations team actually were model developers.
Oh, okay.
They were talking about, now my operations team started talking about saying that, what is the precision and recall of models? And how do you train it? How do you put human in the loop? What is the pipeline that you create? How do you create a constant feedback from what is going in, what is coming out, and how do you constantly keep training all these 500 models in production to understand? How do you generalize 10 models into one model? Those are the type of things. And who did that? These are engineers. Right? So the thing is that when you try to achieve a solution like that, right, which creates like, what will be a customer delight there? A seller is saying that when I put a product, I am able to get my first order within hours. For customers, it is that when I'm searching for a yellow shirt, it is not that I see all type of colors and there is a proper variety of products. It is not that the same product is showing up like 100 times as the result in the first page, right?
Yeah.
So these are the type of engineering problems we have to solve for.
This is super impressive.
Right.
I mean, I'm really the applications of AI. This was before the AI wave even started, right? On Flipkart, I mean, I'm pretty sure they've been adopting AI for quite some time. I was wondering, I mean, from looking at going back to the engineering excellence problem, right? What do you think is going to be the role of AI or Gen AI specifically in engineering excellence moving forward? Or how should engineering teams adopt AI?
Yeah. So here is the thing, and this is I think it is a more cultural shift than anything else. And I remember, like, obviously I've been in this thing quite for some time. I remember when the first time object-oriented programming came in. There was a question, okay, how should we adopt? Should we adopt? That is a non-question in my mind. Right? Or for example, when the more, what I should say, higher level languages came up, right? People were like, oh, should we adopt it? I think that's a non-question. The question you should ask is that, okay, you know what? As an engineer, why are you an engineer? Number one, you have a set of tool sets in your skill. You have to figure out which one to apply in a particular problem space,
right,
and how you are able to do it much more efficiently, and you are able to achieve that business result fast with the tool set that you are using to solve that problem. Right? So without going into the hype of it, I think like whether it is AI, whether it is Gen AI, don't box it that there cannot be like there is a Gen AI expert and an AI expert. Right? As an engineer, you should know that which ones we should adopt and apply to a particular problem statement. In fact, like we are adopting Gen AI big time at Yubi, for example, right?
Okay.
And I will give very simple examples, right? Remember, link the story between quality and speed.
Right.
And now, if Gen AI is part of the tool set, whether it is a engineer who has not heard about, like has years and years of building for scale, but Gen AI can be its companion, his or her companion, in helping that developer build software to that quality and spec. Now, how do you quantify, like, okay, you know what, a Gen AI, if I pair up every single of my engineer with a Gen AI tool, whether it is Copilot, Code Whisperer, doesn't matter, right? What is the efficiency? How do I define? For example, if the way we are measuring it is very different, by the way. We are measuring how many times people are getting it right the first time.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good metric.
Yeah,
that's a good metric.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to, you're right. It's really hard to, there is literally nothing out there that measures the impact of adopting Gen AI.
See, the most constant thing every single one of us has is time, isn't it?
Yep.
If some tool is able to give you back time, that's like priceless. Right? And the way we measure is that how many times, whether it's a feature, whether it's a release, whether it is a bug fix, doesn't matter. We say that how many times you are getting it right the first time. Which means you are having the attention to detail. You are doing the level of whatever 360 checks that you put on your 360 checks on your code. You are able to incorporate defensive programming, right? And that's why you are right the first time.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned that 90% plus of all the people that you have here are not from the fin or insurtech domain, right? I was always wondering, I mean, for a company that's solving such a massive complex problem, right? How do you look at hiring?
See, on the hiring aspect of it, we are very clear, right? So there are two different questions. One, I think, which we always get is, how do you hire? And the second is, how do you retain? Right? Okay, so those are the two questions. So I think one of the aspects of hiring is that whether it is on the product side of things or whether it is on the engineering side of things, we look at what is the first principle thinking and problem solving approach. See, for example, given any problem, how are you thinking about it? How do you are looking at it, right? There will always be unknowns, and this is something like, for example, we have dealt with, because we are a startup 3 years, and when we are dealing with so many different problems, there will be unknowns, but either you get paralyzed looking at unknown, or you make very, very prudent assumptions and move forward.
Okay.
Right? That is the problem solving that we will need constantly, right? And which also means that when you are in a problem solving mode, how quickly you are learning, right? So when we hire, we essentially look at these attitudes, that attitudes to our learning. That one of the questions we ask is that what have you learned new in the last 3 to 6 months?
Yep.
Or how curious you are about what is happening around us.
Yep.
Right? I think those are very important, because everybody, when we use something at Yubi, we say that we are all operating without a blueprint.
Okay.
Because these problems have never been solved before.
Yep.
There's nothing to follow. It's not that I'm following some X of US and trying to create a India version of it. Right? There's no blueprint. Which means the type of problem solving that we will do is very different. And that's why the first principle thinking is very important, right? So that's how we hire, like looking for that attitude, that learning attitude, that thinking of a very structured problem solving and making, not getting paralyzed in the view of ambiguity, right? Those are the ones. The second question is, how do we retain? Is that we don't paint a very rosy picture to people when they join.
Okay.
We say that the journey will be tough, because you have to sort of build things with speed and with quality, and with that there will be humongous amount of ambiguity all the way. So it's very important that people who we hire and join us are aligned to the mission and vision. Because even if we are not aligned to that mission and vision, you will feel that it is very taxing. Versus when you have that mission that I want to make sure that credit is available to people.
Got it.
Right? And that is the structured way of improving the life of millions. Right? I'll just give you one example, right? I told you earlier that 663 lakh MSMEs, right? If imagine, out of 663 lakhs, I will just give you a quick breakdown, right? Out of the 660 lakh are small enterprises. Less than 10 crore of overall, what I should say, this thing, right? Revenue, right? 660 out of that. 3 lakh are medium 660 are micro, very small.
Very small.
Right? Then 3 lakh is medium enterprises. Only 50,000 or 30,000
are enterprises.
Are medium enterprises.
Medium enterprises.
Now, if you see that each one of them, if they get the right credit and for example, where it is due, and for example, where they are able to grow the business, hire 1 extra person, 2 extra person, 6 extra person, can you imagine what it will do in terms of the
growth rate?
Growth and employment and overall, what I should say, improvement of lifestyle of millions.
Yep.
So when we hire people that they are aligned to this mission and vision and making that impact to millions of lives. Because if they are not aligned to that thing, then see, if you are not aligned to the purpose of why we exist or what we are trying to change, right? You will feel like
you won't be motivated.
You will not be motivated. You will feel daunting. You will feel everything like, what is this, right? Versus, you know that there are difficult problems in volleyed at you, and how do you problem solve without a blueprint, and you come up with very, very unique ideas to solve it. That should give you the kicker,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You should get a kick out of solving those problems,
Yes.
unknowns.
Yeah.
I mean, how important is site reliability to you? And even your mission, right?
Absolutely. Right, because I think like I have worked in B2C environment, I have worked in B2B environments as well. And particularly in B2B and when you are in the fintech. Right? It's unforgiving. Right? Your site cannot go down because we are dealing with so many, all the top financial institutes of India. They are depending in some way to this infrastructure and to our solutions to be up and running all the time.
Yep.
Right? So we also say here in some way, I don't want to scare everybody that tomorrow no engineer wants to join us, but we say that your margin of error is 0, and which is true. Right? Now imagine that when you are solving for it, how do you solve, and one of the aspects that we are trying to work is that how do we create a very wide safety net for no developer to go wrong?
Yep.
Right? That's what we are trying to build. So site reliability is not about that. It's about creating that safety net where no developer can go wrong. They will always have a companion in a software form, some form, which will tell them that this is wrong, this is not how it works. That safety net we are trying to create.
So the safety net, I'm guessing, is before it goes into production, right?
Absolutely.
Before any potential mistake goes into production.
And we are trying to create insights from the safety net to the developer in the developer environment itself. Very early, we have all our shift left about the quality thing,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Like imagine shift left for the site reliability metrics.
I agree.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
A developer, when they have first written the code and the build for the first time, imagine it is giving me the insight that these are the things which is making your code unreliable.
Yep.
That's where the innovation lies, right? In terms of building site reliability metrics and insights, shift left.
I agree.
Right? So when you come out of a war room, the most important thing is everybody feels like a winner. It should not be that, one hero emerged. What I have seen in some good war rooms versus bad war rooms is this, right? Bad war rooms is a lot of people in the war room, but they are not converging. Somebody is sending some random thought, here maybe this has happened, maybe that has happened. But they're not converging, because the role of the war room is that converge fast.
Yeah.
So that is the beauty of the war room. Like war room means, and I will tell you very early in my career how I got trained for this. So when I was in US, I was working for Retail Financials, and we had a group of people. Our role was I was in San Francisco, but I used to wake up at 6 o'clock every day morning. Because 6 o'clock in San Francisco is 9 a.m. in New York, and that's where the market opens.
Yeah.
And I was in a war room every single day I was in US.
Oh,
every day morning.
Okay.
And this group of people that we were, the charter given to us was very simple. Doesn't matter whose code base it is. If anything goes wrong, we just have 15 minutes to get it back up and running. Doesn't matter whose code, whose this thing.
Got it.
When you are working under that pump, right, you realize that how to look at a problem and how to do a forensic analysis very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Even though you are saying that I'm losing money every second, but people have to be calm. Right. Second, it has to be very objective. No finger pointing at that point of time. Right. I'm saying that setting these as culture and ground rules is very important for war rooms.
Yep.
I think running war rooms is one of the most important leadership skills.
Yeah. Thanks, Krish, for making time for us today. There'll be so many more stories that's going to come in the next couple of months, couple of years as you continue to build Yubi. But we really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks a lot for this opportunity. Right?
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.